Hi, everyone. It's Dee. Welcome back to Eternal Evolution of Self. As always, I have another amazing guest for you today. This is Brian. Brian, thank you for coming on the podcast today. I know you have a topic that is so dear to my heart, so I'm going to let you tell everyone exactly what it is you're up to today.
Hi, Dee. Thanks very much for having me. It's really appreciate the invite. My name is Brian Livingston, and I am a 10x certified business coach with Grant Cardone, is how I'm referred to. But the way that I really refer to more as myself is I'm a former first responder who has turned business owner, and now I help other first responders who have hit what I refer to as that point where they know that they need to get out, and I help them to plan and get to a future more successful version and get them back to who they used to be.
Mm. Yeah, because first responders see a lot of things. You and I had a little pre-chat the other day and where we talked about this. And I said to you, I used to be a nurse, and I heard people comment on how rough it can be to be in the ER because of all of the things they see. And I responded to that person, yes, they do see a lot, but first responders really, really see the mess, when they first get to an accident or whatever the case may be, because, these situations show up in many different ways. So I'm very glad you do what you do. Thank you for your service to our country in that manner. And thank you also to all of the rest of you first responders. Y'all are dear to my heart. So I'll let you talk a little bit more about what you do.
Sure. No, that's great. I appreciate that. And I agree. And one of the things that I think people need to understand is, you know, my experiences in terms of that are in relation to being a former police officer. And so the experience that I've had are not unique to just first responders. You know what I mean? Like everybody goes through different traumatic events in their employment in different ways. I just happen to come from that first responder background, right? And so you are right. There are traumatic events that, we've had to go to. I myself personally, I had to go to an event where a guy got run over by a bulldozer, and I was having to measure out the accident scene, and I was literally having to measure two different body parts as to where they were in relation to the baseline. So those events can change you. And but I want people to understand who are listening today, this isn't just first responder related,
Mm.
right? Like there's different stressors for different people, and we need to know when we've hit that point, right? And the biggest thing that when I'm talking with people, my first question all the time is, okay, well, what are you doing about getting help?
Mm.
Right, right off the bat, because I am not a counselor. I have absolutely no idea to how to talk people through the mental health concerns that they're having. But it's important to identify the fact that they are having them. And, I can't speak in relation to other employment, but I can speak in relation to first responders. Um, the notion is that admitting mental health is a sign of weakness, right? That everyone's going to look at that you can't hack the job, and somehow we start to internalize the self that we're lesser, we're supposed to be able to tolerate this stuff.
Right.
And it, as I tell people, eh, admitting that you need help is probably one of the biggest signs of strength that somebody can do, because you're willing to come out in front of other people
Yeah.
and say, hey, I need help, right? And so the first step is always what are you doing about getting help? How can you go about getting help? What services are your employer, offering to you?
Right.
And are you availing yourself to those services?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we do think a lot about what other people think about us in this situation, and not in just the workplace either, but it's so interesting. Like so many things come up like all at one time. Like it just like I want to rapid fire questions at you right now, but that's not fair. So I'm
Go
going to try
ahead.
to do one at a time. So addressing the issue of being worried about people and what they're going to think, and that it somehow minimizes you for you to be hurting or have a hard time dealing with these super highly emotionally charged situations. What do you say to people to encourage them to reach out and let them know that it is not in any way minimizing them? In fact, it's a sign of strength.
Well, first of all, I let them know exactly that, right? And I let them know, my story. Like I let them know that I can empathize and sympathize with them because I went through it, right? I literally remember laying in my bed night after night, and I'm looking up at the ceiling, and there's a water stain in my ceiling that I've got memorized in my head still, over 2 decades later. And I remember sitting there alternating between looking up at the ceiling and looking over it at my alarm clock. This was pre-cell phone days, right? So we still had the alarm clock, and looking over and watching the minutes tick by,
Right.
and just, you know, going another sleepless night, and just going, man, I can't believe it's true. And what I mean by true was, when I joined policing, I came in and I was told three things right off the bat. And two of them were from officers that I met. This is literally within my first week. And the third one was from my father. And the first one was, get out now.
Mm,
That was literally in my first week out of police college. I had an officer who was about 12 years in who said, get out now. Just, you need to leave. This is not a life you want. Move on. And I was just like, man, this guy's crazy. Of course I want this life. And second of all, the guy came to me and he said, so how well do you sleep? And I said, oh, I sleep great at night. And he said, well, that's going to disappear. He goes, get ready for it. And the third thing was my dad. And my dad told me, pick two people that really have it together and model yourself after their career, right? And within the first year that I was policing, one of those two people took his own life in our locker room with his gun,
wow.
right? And so I remember laying there, and I finally had that particular event. You can go through so many events where they don't bother you at the time, right? And they may not bother you ever, but I can tell you, there's so many people out there right now that are listening to this who will know what event I'm talking about. And I had that event, and it broke me, right? And I drove away from the scene, and I was just bawling. Tears were streaming down my face. I didn't know what to do. And my supervisor comes over the phone, or over the radio, sorry, pre-phone, over the radio, and he says, hey, can you pull over? I need to talk to you. And so here I am, we're tough as nails, police officers, nothing affects us. And I've got to pull over and speak to my supervisor. And I pulled over, and I'm just tears, like uncontrollably, I was sobbing. And, that was my point. And I think when people hear that story, they've got a story similar to that. So
Hmm.
many people out there do, and they need to understand that they are so similar to everybody else who's in their profession. Most of those people are hiding the
Hmm.
fact that they've had that event, and but because they don't want to admit that weakness, they they hide. And I think it's good for them to know, first of all, that I know what they're going through, right? Because I went through it, and to understand that almost everybody else who's around them is going through it as well,
Yeah.
right? For one stage or another.
Yeah, it's very true. We're not alone. And I'm actually working on a book, and one of the things I said in the book is even though we're not alone, we're surrounded by other people that can love us and support us, and a lot of them do. Um, we're still alone inside of ourselves. And I think that's the piece that is the hardest thing to handle, because no matter how many people are around, we have to allow the shift in mindset and the shift in the way we look at it and allow it to affect us. That has to happen inside of us. So how do we help people make that inward shift? Because that's the most impactful piece to this whole thing, right?
Oh, I completely agree, and it's uh, to me, I think it's admitting that it's okay to admit that you're not okay,
Yeah.
right? And they need to understand that it's there would be much more support out there for them than they actually really understand.
Yeah.
Like when I finally left policing and moved on, I lost count of the number of officers who privately called me or spoke to me, stopped by my house or whatever, and they literally congratulated me. And they said privately, I wish I had the strength to do what you've done. And so they really need to understand the people around you understand what you're going through. Okay. Although they may not be at the point yet that they're willing to talk about it with you.
Hmm.
Okay. They understand you and they understand what you're going through. And you know, what one of the big things that people also fail to understand is, especially if you have a spouse, you have a significant other, you have children, okay, that's your world. You know what I mean? Your family, your closest friends, that is your world. And whether you realize it or not, you are affecting them.
Hmm.
Okay. And I'll be blunt, taking your own life is not the answer to help them. Okay. They need you. They
Right.
need you on an operational basis. They need you to be there for them. And you may not be in that place that you can, but you need to get yourself back to the place where you can be, because your family deserves that. And I'm literally dealing with an officer right now where I'm having to re-emphasize that to him. Okay, where it's just, you know, we're working through the steps, we're now working on his business plan and everything like that, and he's starting to see that there is light in the tunnel,
Good.
right? And because he hit that point and he has to leave, and knows he has to leave, but he's starting to realize, wow, you know what, I have changed, but my family needs me, right? So realize that that need is for you to be alive, right? For you to come back to being that supportive person that your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your wife or your husband, your parents, your brother and sister, they want that person to come back to them,
Right.
and they will support you too, right? You're so there's so many people around you that care about you, okay? And you just need to let them know what's going on and then go and get that help because it's so important.
Right. And I'm so super glad you brought up the piece about family like that, because we watch these shows about, first responders and police officers, and the thing they think, I can't talk today, things they see and go through. And a lot of them, they're not talking to their spouses at all. Their spouse is asking them, and instead of them talking to them about it, they try to protect them from the information and not talk to them about it. And then it creates this huge rift in this beautiful couple. And so you see, a lot of times they're married multiple times, or they have dysfunctional relationships because they don't open up and share. So I guess A, how do you encourage people to share? And B, how do we help the family members be as best of a support as they can to the person who's in the situation?
I first of all, I think part of what's helping them, helps them is when I'm willing to share,
Hmm.
right? And so when I'm talking to them, I'm more than willing to admit that I literally was broken, right? And that I didn't start getting better until I acknowledged that and I went to get help. And I made some important decisions, right? Because while I was a police officer, I think roughly about half my force went through divorces, you know, and I looked at all of that and I made the decision that I said, you know, I love my wife, I love my children. I don't want to leave them. I don't want my wife to go and start a new life without me. And, I want them with me all the time. Right. And well, so that was a decision that I had to make. Right. And I was lucky in the fact that I'd read that, you know, if you've gone through multiple marriages and they seem to be breaking up because of the same reasons, well, at a certain point, we need to start looking at ourselves and going, okay, well, until I change myself and what's going on with me, I'm going to keep having those same problems, right? You can't solve somebody else's problems, but you can definitely work on your own.
Right.
Now, in terms of coming from what does a family do? Okay, the family just needs to let them know that they're there when they're ready, right? When the person is finally comes out and says, "Hey, I'm ready to talk about this." Okay. All you can let them know is you can say, listen, I know you're going through it. I understand that. I don't, you know, because in some cases, especially as police officers, we can't even give details of the case, right?
Right.
Those types of things. I can't comment on other first responders because I don't know their legal requirements. But in a lot of things, we can't talk about that stuff, but we can still talk in, general terms, right? But understand when the anger comes out, the anger is completely displaced, but we don't know where we're putting it, right? We don't know how to find an outlet, a safe outlet to do that. And so it comes out inappropriately. And that's not your fault, and you don't deserve it. Okay. But understand it's likely going to come. Okay. But that's where you just go, you know what, if you want, if you want to talk to me, talk to me. I'm here. But if you don't want to talk to me, I understand that. Okay. But like I said, I'm not a therapist, right? All I can tell you, is from my personal experience of what I went through. I know I treated my wife poorly. I know that I did because we have a tendency, just as people, we have a tendency to lash out at those who are closest to us because we have this expectation that because they're there for us, they're always going to be there for us. So therefore they have to take it.
Right.
And it's so wrong in so many different ways, and so I can't speak for every specific person. All I can do is let them know what happened with me and let them know that it's okay to, as I always say, it's okay to admit you're not okay.
Right. It definitely is. And we all need to reach out. Um, I know we're probably capturing some family members in our audience today who are like, I wish my husband, wife, whoever, whatever the case may be, would reach out and talk to me and things like that. And so, for the people who are the support system for the person in these highly emotionally charged situations, are there things, if they're listening, that they should not be saying to that person? And trying to get
Um,
them to talk to them or whatever, can you give us some examples of how they may better support and just not say certain things that may be troubling?
well, that's going to be where they're going to know their significant other, right? And they're going to kind of know their trigger points.
Hmm.
Okay. And the thing is, you shouldn't have to tiptoe around your spouse just because they're having a hard time. Okay. Because you're entitled to a life too.
Hmm.
Okay. But those people need to, also make a decision, right? You know, is this something that, I am wanting? Right? Am I prepared to deal with this for the rest of my life? And they're going to hit that point, but you don't necessarily want to confront it head on. At least I would not have liked that. You know, I can say that if my wife had just come to me and gone, you need help, or I'm going to go get a divorce, my response would have been, fine, I'll sign the papers, bring them to me today.
Hmm.
Because an ultimatum with me personally would not have worked because my pride would have kicked in and
Right.
just gone, you're not going to tell me what to do, because a lot of first responders are type A personalities, right? And so challenging them, um, at least for me, would not have worked,
Right.
right? But letting I think just asking them, how is your shift? Are you okay? Um, you know, anything I can do for you? It's tough though, because at the same time that you're being treated poorly, you're being asked to be the bigger person,
Right.
to kind of offer that olive branch to say, I'm here for you and I'm going to continue to be here for you when you're ready. And I guess that's really what it comes down to, is just knowing that they're going to be there when you're ready to talk about it. But understand, we don't know when they're going to be ready,
Right. So maybe
right?
this is a good opportunity for us to let family members know that it may be beneficial for them also to reach out and find someone that they can talk to so that they can better navigate the situation. Because I mean, I think our instinct is to want to be there and to help that person, because I know that's how I am. Like, I want everyone to feel better. I want everyone to be happy and successful and have an amazing life. And that's just unfortunately not the reality of it. um but being able to better support that person and on a consistent basis, so is that something you think would be a good idea for, like, if a family member is listening and they're really struggling, that, hey, it's okay for you to reach out too.
There are support groups out there, right? I do know that there are, and there's spouses of first responders and stuff like that. There's groups out there, and they may even be able to apply for those types of benefits through their whatever benefits their spouse has,
Mhm.
right? Or you can go and you can find those groups. So it's great. If not, find a family member that they can talk to, you know, but they need to find a family member that's supportive, right? Um, one of the family member that was great for me was my father, right? My father said to me, he said, "Well, this isn't about you anymore." He said, "This is about your wife and your kids." He said, "So quit being so selfish." And it was a real slap in the face, right? So that helped me, because I did go to my dad. Maybe, they have a family member that they know that they can trust, that they can talk to, but find out what the resources are that you can use to find your own support group, right? Because they are out there. And they, if they're there, those support groups are out there for you, they're going to have much better ideas as to how to go about dealing with this, because they're going to have experts who literally have studied this as to the best ways to go about getting, that cohesive unit of your family back together again.
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, that's what most people want. They don't want the divorce, not really, most of them. They want the family to be a cohesive, loving, supportive unit, you know? And
Yeah.
so what would you say to people who would say, well, I shouldn't have to go get support. It should just be he should just be talking to me, or she should just be talking to me about it.
Then we were literally running into two brick walls,
Right.
right? Who, and the, to be able to say, well, he's got to do it first, or she's got to do it first, right? Somebody's got to make a decision. Okay.
Right.
And the most important thing you got to remember is, first and foremost, you're responsible for yourself.
That's right.
Okay. And then realize that outside of that, you have other responsibilities. And although many people may not agree with me, this, well, I don't have any bandwidth for you because I'm working on me. Okay, well, you can't just work on you if you have children,
Yeah.
right? You know there are other people out there that need you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to admit that you need to go and get the help, whether it's the first responder or the spouse, or whatever it is, or even if there's adult children that are involved, or children who are old enough to go, what, I need that help,
Yeah.
for them to realize, somebody's gotta, you're responsible for you. You can't say he or she is responsible for me. This is their fault, so therefore they need to fix it.
Yep.
Okay. Because nobody's ever 100% at fault, no matter how much you want to acknowledge that you're perfect, as I call it, the Mary Poppins syndrome, right? Practically perfect in every way,
Yeah.
right? There are still things that you are bringing to the table that
Yes.
aren't necessarily helping the situation, right? So
Yeah.
you fix your side of things with the hope that they're going to fix their side.
Right. Yeah. I think that's great advice. We really do have to take ownership of ourselves and our actions and our needs. to have someone who's going to support us and listen. You know, I'm a very stubborn, self-sufficient, independent woman. And I, for the longest time, thought I can do this by myself. I don't need anyone's help. And so I didn't reach out for help like I should have in some of the situations I was in. And I thought I can do it on my own. And the fact of the matter is, sometimes you just can't. You don't know the things,
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know, as they say. And so
Yeah.
there's always a better way to do it, a different way of looking at it. And you can't always figure that out on your own, you know? So reaching
Yeah.
out to groups and coaches and therapists that can help you navigate that situation is so important, because at the end of the day, your well-being, emotional, physical, you know, psychological, is that's the most important stuff right there.
Oh, completely. To find a, a coach, a mentor, to find a support group, whatever it is, you don't, like you said, you don't know what you don't know,
Mhm.
but you've got to admit that you don't know it all,
Right.
right? And that's a humbling experience, in and of itself. But when you open yourself to say, I don't know everything, you're opening new doors to you being able to see what's out there that you're missing, right?
Right.
And I think that's such a great opportunity for people, because what you're doing now isn't working, right? If you've hit that point, it's not.
Right.
So why would you want to continue doing the same thing?
Yeah.
It may be humbling, but realize that you've got to do it. If you want a better life for yourself, for your family, then admit you don't know it all and open those doors up to new information, and then you're going to grow.
Right. And other people. And I was just thinking, like, a couple things come to mind, and that's one is, you know, we'll reach out for help educating ourselves on so many different things. Like we'll take classes to learn how to sew, or we'll take a class and learn how to paint or whatever, you know. Why can't we just reach out and ask for help and guidance in learning how to navigate our emotions? How is that different? You know, it's still
Oh,
reaching out for help and teaching.
for me personally, and I can't answer for everyone, but for me, acknowledging that I don't know how to sew, I don't consider to be a weakness, right?
Mhm.
Acknowledging that I don't know how to take a great photograph, you know, though those are things that I don't see as a sign of weakness, but we internalize our ability to know ourselves and
Mhm.
to know what's best for ourselves so much that it really comes down to an ego thing,
And that's
right?
what it is, I think, right there. Yeah.
My ego is so big that I can't admit that I could be wrong,
Yeah.
and it's something that my kids are great at reminding me about, right? You know, I thought I realized I made a mistake the other day, but then I remembered I was wrong about that. Like it's,
Yeah. My
they're like,
daddy's granny used to say to him, "But with your own head, Donnie, but with your own head," because he wouldn't ask for help. He'd just keep trying to do it himself. And so that's what she said to him. I thought that was so cool.
yeah, how many times do you smash your head against the wall before you realize there might be another way of doing things?
Right.
You know,
Yeah, exactly. Your
but
head gets sore
we've got
after
to,
a while.
yeah, we've got to take that ego down a notch, and it's humbling, and people don't. Some people just don't want to do that, right?
Yeah. But you can do it. You know, you can give yourself permission. And I think that's what it is. And I always tell people, get curious, right? Get curious about what it could be like if it was different. Because when you start asking yourself, I wonder what it would be like if it was different. If I did come home and my husband, girlfriend, spouse, whatever would talk to me, what would that look like? You know? And then because when you start asking yourself that question, then you're more willing to open up possibilities to get to that place.
Well, and that's a great statement. I really think it is because when I'm talking with the people, excuse me, sorry, um, one of the things that I then talk to them about is like, okay, if you've hit that point, we need to make a plan,
Hmm.
right? And one of the things I go through with them is who are you, right? Because so many people just go, well, I'm a first responder. Well, no, you're not. You're a husband, you're a wife, you're a brother, you're a sister, you're a parent, maybe you're a grandparent, or there's so much more that you are. And then we start to go, okay, now we need a plan.
Hmm.
And part of that plan is, what do you want your life to look like?
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes we want to go back in time and go, when you were first getting married, when you were first, what did you envision your life to be like 10, 15, 20 years down the road? And are you reaching that target?
Hmm.
Right. And if you're not reaching that target, we need to then recreate that image of what it is that you want and then set goals so that you can go out and get that. And when we first start off, if this is the line, we only start off on a slight degree off of what that plan was,
Right.
right? But 1 degree off of the center line over time takes you miles and miles away from the destination from where you wanted to get to. And we lose sight of that,
Yes.
right? And so, we want to create that plan and go, okay, where do you want to be? And like you said, in almost all occasions, it's like, well, I want to be with my spouse,
Hmm.
right? Okay, well, if you want to be with your spouse, what are the steps that you need to take
Hmm.
so that you remain with your spouse,
Right.
right? I want to be a parent to my kids, right? Okay, and once so many people work on a day to day basis, you know, and instead of looking on a day to day, let's remember what the long term goal was that you wanted, and let's refocus on that, and then let's break it down into little steps so we can get there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about laying it brick by brick. The whole wall doesn't happen or the whole building doesn't happen at one time. You've got to lay it brick by brick. It's one step at a time. And I know my personal self, I've gotten so caught up in what I wanted the outcome to look like that I was so overwhelmed by that because I was over here and my outcome was over here, that I was at a standstill. I was paralyzed in that space because I couldn't see how it would be possible to do it. And it is just focusing on the little steps, the little steps. I have talked to people that have been through some stuff too, and it's like, well, I need to just take it day by day. And I said, yes, take it day by day. I said, but sometimes it's smaller than that. Sometimes it's hour by hour. Sometimes it's minute by minute. Sometimes it's literally breath by breath. And you just have to give yourself grace and allow it. Just breathe in and out, and then take the
Oh,
next breath.
I completely agree. And I think, no matter how small you got to break those steps down to,
Mhm.
understand that eventually they're going to get you to where you want to get to. Like if you're going to walk 1 mile because you got to get to the store, well, I don't have a 1 mile long stride,
Right.
right? Like So,
Yeah,
but in our minds, we're like, okay, well, that's going to take me about 15 minutes to walk that mile to get to the store. And, our brains can easily compute that.
right.
Well, it's no different with our goals,
Mhm.
but we suddenly go, well, I want to be there tomorrow.
Right.
And it's like, well, no, we're not going to get there tomorrow. But by doing this step today or this step this second, right?
Mhm.
And maybe it is needing to just close our eyes and tilt our head back and breathe.
Mhm.
Maybe it is to go to that mindfulness space to, bring you back to a center of calm. My wife still rubs my back sometimes, and she just goes, take a breath.
Yeah,
She still just take a breath. And I'm
yeah,
like, thank you, because we forget to do that. And sometimes it's just small steps. You're completely right.
yeah. And it's so cool that you just said that because we do hold so much tension in our bodies that we forget to breathe. We literally forget to breathe. We hold our breath. And unless you're paying attention to that, you don't really notice it, but it is so true. So yay for your wife to help you through that, because that's cool. And you for recognizing it and then being grateful to her for helping you see that because it's we need that sometimes. Each one of us, we need it.
Yep. Yep. We can get to that next step, and we just need to realize that sometimes we need that second.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm so grateful you for what you do and for coming on this podcast today to share with everyone that has been through some of these traumatic events. And again, it doesn't, you know, just belong to the first responder crowd. There are a lot of different aspects of life where we've experienced trauma. So if someone would like to reach out to you and have you as their coach, Brian, where will they find you?
They can go to mygurumentoring.com. They can go there, and we have a landing page, and they can reach out, and we can set up a meeting. It's a free call. There's nothing like that. And then we can just decide, first of all, where are you at? What are you wanting to do? And then we can see whether or not there's a fit. But and I appreciate that, because obviously if people want, have decided they're at that point and they want coaching and they want to move on to a new career, that's great. But if I'm not that person for them, okay, I think people need to take away that it's okay. You're going to be okay,
Yeah,
but you need to go and get that help. That's the biggest step that people need to realize, and realize that it is a show of strength.
it is.
Admitting you're weak is showing strength, and they need to remember that.
Absolutely. It's absolutely a show of strength to reach out for help. I totally agree with you. I didn't always feel that way because I was going through some stuff on my own and I was like just digging my heels in and like I can get through this on my own, but it's you can't always. And even if you can, it's light years easier and quicker if you do reach out to someone and get them to give you the support that you need through that time. So if you're listening to this, please be willing to reach out to someone, whoever that someone is for you. There's lots of resources. Well, I will put Brian's information in the description box below this video. If you're a family member of someone who has reach this place where they need to reach out to someone to get some additional support, please reach out yourself to get additional support for you because it's hard to be a supporter. It's hard to be a caregiver sometimes, for people. It's a very emotionally charged situation. So please reach out and Brian's here for you. I'm here for you. There's other coaches out there. There's, so many resources, groups like Brian said that you can reach out to, support groups. please just know that it is a show of strength, and we all need each other. We all need each other. So get get yourself into a situation that's going to be better, more beneficial for you. Like I said, get curious about what it can look like for you. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast. I'm so grateful for every single one of you. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I love you all. And thank you for being here. Brian, thanks again.
Thank you.